What's going on, everybody? It is a massive Thursday night in fantasy football, a not so big night in the NFL. We got a clash between the Rams and the Raiders. It's going to be a fun one, guys. I mean, the Rams, I think, are in contention as the worst team in the NFL. I don't think we've ever seen a Super Bowl winner fall so hard. The Raiders haven't been great this season, but they are on a little bit of a run. Raiders 6.5-point favorites in this game tonight. Obviously, in most leagues, this is the last week before the fantasy playoffs. This is must-win territory in a lot of fantasy spots. Hey, Sam, Moreau or Higbee tonight. Hope you're doing well. I mean, Nick, I'm doing well, man. But this is just gross. I mean, it's a gross question. It's a gross decision that you have to make. And honestly, I have a tough time going Higbee. I think I would go Moreau in this last game without Darren Waller. At least there's going to be at least one more game without Waller. I think I would go Moreau. I want nothing to do with Higbee. He's out there every snap. He hasn't looked fully healthy this season. I feel like Moreau's the way to go. I have a feeling our projections probably disagree with me on that. Higbee projects well because he's out there every single play. And he played 93% of the snaps last week. A good matchup against the Seahawks. 5 targets, 2 catches, 14 yards, 3 fantasy points. He had 0 points the week before that. Quarterback situation's only looking worse. It's only looking worse for the Rams. Baker Mayfield, I think, is going to start in this game, by the way. We don't know the starting quarterback for the Rams still, though. We do not know the starting QB for the Rams. I mean, even more reason to bench Higbee and bench all of the Rams pass catchers. There's not a single Rams pass catcher today with an over-under above 39.5. I really don't think we've seen that in a game in the NFL this whole season. I mean, it's really bleak out there for the passing game for the Rams. The offensive line is trash. They have no quarterback. Baker Mayfield joined the team less than 2 days ago. And he's probably starting. He's probably going to start. Apparently, he took the most snaps with the ones in warmups. I don't know if that actually is telling, though, because, I mean, obviously you want to get him some snaps out there. All right. Fournette, or do I start Jacobs? Yeah, you got to start Jacobs. Yeah, so I mean, the obvious starts tonight. Obviously, you're starting Adams. Obviously, you're starting Josh Jacobs. I think you start the Raiders defense as well. I think Mac Hollins is an interesting fringe start. Derek Carr can be started in some situations. I saw a question earlier at the beginning of the stream, or maybe right before the stream started. I would play Derek Carr over Daniel Jones. For example, I would play Derek Carr over Tyler Huntley, for example. And then Cam Akers, he should get some volume today. He did lead this backfield pretty considerably last week. He did score 2 touchdowns last week. It seems like he is the guy in the backfield now, not Kyron Williams. They've been flip-flopping a little bit, though. Back in week 12, Cam Akers only played 28% of the snaps. He had 3 points. And then last week, he played almost 80% of the snaps, and he had 19 points. I would play Cam Akers pretty confidently over Kyron, though. His prop lines are well ahead. But yeah, you're starting Jacobs 100%. Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward decisions in fantasy. Moreau or Dolch, please. You got to go Dolch, man. You got to go Dolch. I think you go Dolch over Higbee as well. Oh my G, Devontae Adams a must start. That is groundbreaking. Yeah, so like I get these comments every single live stream. I get these comments saying that some of this stuff is obvious, but I'm saying every single player in the game. So there's going to be some obvious ones, obviously. This one, honestly, this game tonight feels like the most obvious of a lot of Thursday games. Hey, Sam, should I start Dameon Pierce, Rachaad White, or P. Ryan this week? Yes, so Joe Mixon's back. Don't start P. Ryan. Do not start P. Ryan with Joe Mixon back. Also, should I start T. Higgins or risk it with Marquise Brown? I wouldn't risk it with Marquise. I would start T. Dameon Pierce versus Rachaad White, super close because White's got a really tough matchup. He's up against the 49ers. Dameon Pierce, not a great matchup either against the Cowboys, though. I think I would probably lean White if it's a PPR league. We do have Dameon Pierce, I think, ranked ahead of, a little bit ahead of Rachaad White. Dameon Pierce is over under 60.5 rushing yards this week, even though they're huge underdogs against the Cowboys. I think it's like 17, maybe more point underdogs. Let me pull up the spreads again really quickly here. We'll get to as many starts as I can. Shout out to everyone in this live. Palmer or Knight at flex. Shout out to the TikTok live subscribers, by the way. I think I'd go Knight. It sounds like Mike Williams is going to be back this week. He did practice in full today. Tonight's game, though. Let's talk about a little bit about the Thursday night game tonight. So the Raiders are on a little bit of a roll right now. I think they're coming off 2 straight wins. The Rams are probably the most down bad team in the league, and there's a lot of down bad teams. The Broncos come to mind as one of them, but I think the Rams are probably the most down bad team in the league. Yes, the Raiders coming off a win against the Chargers, a win against the Seahawks in OT the week before that, and a win against the Broncos in overtime the week before that. The Raiders, I do not think are a legitimate force in the NFL, but they're certainly better than the Rams. That's why they're 6.5-point favorites when they're the road team. Very rare to see that big a favorite on the road. Happy Thursday, Mayfield or Huntley in my extra QB slot, Kyle. Kyle, you can't start Mayfield. You can't start Mayfield. We don't even know he's actually going to play. I think he's going to play, but it still would be kind of shocking to see him play. He's been on the team 2 days. He's very much set up to fail. I feel like he's been in a lot of spots where he's been set up to fail. The Panthers was kind of a tough spot for him. I don't think he was set up to fail entirely on the Browns, but he's been on the team 2 days. And his top receiver is Ben Skowronek. Van Jefferson. We might see some Tutu Atwell tonight. By the way, the free prop pick of the night, I'm feeling a Ben Skowronek 30-yard catch tonight. His line is 28.5. Ben Skowronek is the only receiver that I would touch on the props tonight. At least one of these receivers is probably going to hit because they're all under 30 yards, basically, these prop lines for the Rams receivers. I like the Josh Jacobs rushing prop, too. That one feels like it's pretty chalky. Feels like a lot of people are on that one, but I do like the Josh Jacobs rushing prop on PrizePicks, 87.5 there too. But yeah, the receiving lines. Look at the receiving lines, guys. Higbee's at 26.5 receiving yards. I mean, gross. Van Jefferson leads the group with 37.5. I'd probably take the under on that one. But Ben Skowronek, I don't hate that at 26.5. Tutu Atwell, 24.5. Brandon Powell is at 18.5. I mean, just disgusting receiving group for Baker Mayfield or John Wolford, who was ever starting for the Rams tonight. What's up, Sam? Should I go with Moreau or Fant? And should I go Garrett Wilson or Debo? Yeah, I'd go Moreau. I think, let me actually pull up. Fant is coming off his best game, one of his best games of the season. I have a ridiculous amount of Noah Fant in my best ball leagues. I still think, yeah, you got to go Moreau. You got to go Moreau over Noah Fant. The only risk with the Raiders tonight, and with Devontae Adams especially, and Derek Carr too, is that this game is over, very early in the game. They just don't need to throw very much. Mac Hollins or Nico? You got to go Mac Hollins over Nico Collins. Does not sound like Nico Collins is a lock to play. He missed practice today. Seahawks defense or Raiders defense? I love the Raiders defense tonight. Purdy or Tannehill? With the buys in Week 14, we're in some tough spots here. But I honestly, the 49ers, we were just looking at that matchup too. Let me pull this up again really quickly before I answer your Brock Purdy question. Yeah, I think I'd go Tannehill. Yeah, I would go Tannehill over Brock Purdy, even though the weapons for Purdy are pretty strong. Fournette or Pacheco, full PPR. Pacheco's playing the Broncos, a bad matchup, but a positive game script. I feel okay about Pacheco this week. I think I'd lean Pacheco. Gabe Davis or T. Higgins? I'd definitely go T. Higgins over Gabe Davis. Why is Tyreek Hill now listed as questionable? I actually didn't see that, but I think he's playing. So I wouldn't read too much into the questionable tag for Tyreek Hill. What about Higbee? Yeah, so don't start Higbee. You can't start Higbee. I think he's really a must bench. I would play Moreau over Higbee. I'd play the Titans tight end. I'm going to struggle pronouncing his name, but I'd play him. He's Okonkwo, I think it is. Okonkwo. I'd play that guy over Tyler Higbee. Higbee's going to be out there almost every single snap. He projects well every week, but you can't trust him, man. He's got under 5 fantasy points now in his last 2 combined games, and he's been out there every snap, and the QB situation is just so bleak. The offensive line is so terrible. You can't feel good about Higbee. You really can't. He's got 5 combined targets in his last 2 games for 2 catches and 14 yards, a combined 3.4 points for Higbee in his last 2 games, man. Don't do it to yourself. Do not do it to yourself. Hey, Sam, how are you? Rashad White or James? I'm doing great, man. CJ, I'm doing fantastic. It's going to be a fantastic, fun game tonight. So I'm doing well, man. I live for these Thursday night brutal games. Like, I don't know what it is about the bad teams playing on Thursday night, but for me, I find a lot of enjoyment in it. It really is fun. Rashad White or James Cook? Maybe it's because I'm a Pats fan and it's nice to see some teams worse than the Pats play. Rashad White or James Cook? Yeah. James Cook is definitely going to be in a lot of start sits for me this week, and he's a tough one because he really looks like the best running back on the Buffalo Bills. but he's probably not going to play more than half the snaps. And Singletary is going to be involved, and Josh Allen is still a big threat for those red zone carries, red zone touchdowns. So I think his floor is actually still pretty low. Obviously, Fournette, though, trending in the opposite direction of James Cook. I have a feeling we're a decent amount higher on Fournette, though. Let's see. Let me confirm here. Yeah, you got to actually we have James Cook one spot ahead of Fournette. So yeah, I guess you got to go James Cook. He is on the Bills. We have him projected only for 10 carries, though. He did have 6 catches last game. But yeah, I guess you go James. Oh, sorry, it's Rachaad White. Yeah, I'd go Rachaad White. I thought you said Leonard Fournette for some reason. But yeah, I would go Rachaad White over James Cook. I would go James Cook over Leonard Fournette, though. So it's just sort of how I'm feeling about that Buccaneers backfield. Also, Sam, must win. Can you pick 2? Foreman, Latavius Murray, Antonio Jones, also Debo or Garrett Wilson. I said this last week. I'm standing by this take for the rest of the season. You got to start Garrett Wilson every single week. I get more comments in the TikTok live. Wow, I got to start Josh Jacobs. No way. This is just the format I do every week. I put every single player in the start sits over on TikTok. Obviously, Adams, Jacobs, they're must starts. But I'm not going to force must starts in there. There's not a very many must starts tonight. I played Latavius Murray over Tony Jones. I want absolutely nothing to do with Tony Jones. I know he might lead the Seahawks in touches, but he's bad. We've seen this before. If you guys remember, I think it was last season, right? He was a rookie last season on the Saints, if I recall correctly. Maybe that was 2 seasons ago. He had a couple starts when there were some injuries, and man, was he awful. It was last year. Let me pull up the game log for you really quickly. His one game, he had 16 carries. His one game in his career with more than 11 carries, he had 16 carries. He had 27 yards, 0 catches, 0 touchdowns. Like, he's not a good receiver. He's not good. I'm not starting Tony Jones. It's not a terrible spot, but yeah, I'm certainly taking Latavius Murray, even in sort of, he's not a great option either. Trade away Debo, Saquon, Cousins, and Schultz for CD and Swift. I have Hawk, Eckler, Herbert, and Pollard. I don't really love getting CD and Pollard on the same team, but you already have Schultz and Pollard on the same team. Saquon, I still think is the best player in the trade. I don't love it. Honestly, I don't love it. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I don't hate getting Swift, but I don't love it overall. Higbee or Bellinger. You got to go back. You got to go Bellinger, I think. I don't know. It's close. The prop line for Bellinger is super, super low. They're playing the Eagles. Honestly, I feel like you kind of have to go Higbee in this one. Higbee will likely see more targets than Bellinger. But Bellinger was looking good before the injury, I will say. And again, I really do want nothing to do with Tyler Higbee tonight. Should I go Cam Akers getting 13 fantasy points? I wouldn't trust that. Crazy to start Higbee over Njoku. I do think that is crazy. I would not start Higbee over Njoku. I actually kind of really like Njoku this week. He feels like he could end up being a really good go-to security blanket option for Deshaun, who really struggled in his first start. I don't dislike Njoku at all this week. I definitely dislike Tyler Higbee. Dak or Goff. Guys, Goff is startable. He's startable this week for sure. I actually think Dak is a couple spots ahead of them. I do think you got to start Dak. The risk with Dak, obviously, in this game against the Texans, they're massive. I mean, colossal favorites. They are 17.5-point favorites at home against the Texans. Obviously, we know they have the league worst run defense. That bodes well for the rushing attack for the Cowboys. That might be bad for Dak if they get too big of a lead. I mean, they're projected to get too big of a lead. And the Lions-Vikings game is going to be close. Should be high scoring. I still think Dak is better, though, than Goff. I still think I'd go Dak over Goff. I'm playing Cam Akers over Tony Jones. I'm seeing that one in the YouTube live. Carr, Goff, or Huntley. I'm going Carr after Goff. I'd go Goff, then Carr, then Huntley. That's how I'd rank those guys. Must win Cam Akers or Tony Jones. Yeah, you got to go Cam Akers over Tony Jones, but you shouldn't feel good about it. What's up, Sam? Love the app, just as everyone should. Thanks, Hudson. I appreciate that. Shout out to the WalterPicks app. If you haven't checked it out, you got to check it out. Yo, what's good? What's going on in the TikTok live? T. Higgins or Marquise Brown this week? Yeah, so I don't think you can bench T. I really don't. I think Joe Burrow's looked too good. This offense has looked too good. I know that Jamar Chase is back, and I'm not too worried about that. I wasn't worried about that going into the season. Both these guys can put up wide receiver 1 numbers any given week. T. Higgins really hasn't had very many bad games this entire season. He's had 0 games since every game that he's played more than half the snaps. So all the healthy games he's played, T. Higgins has gone over 10 points. I mean, the floor is really high. Marquise Brown has seen at least 8 targets in almost every game he's played in, but he's only played one game with Hopkins. He actually saw 8 targets in that game. That was encouraging, but I still think I would go T. Higgins over Marquise Brown, and the floor is so high for him. Van Jefferson or Mac Hollins? I'm going Mac Hollins like easily. I mean, easily. I think Mac Hollins' prop line is at least 15 yards higher than Van Jefferson's, and it's because of the quarterback situation. You can't start any of these Rams pass catchers. Pickens or Rondale? I don't think Rondale's playing. He didn't practice. I'd go Pickens for sure. Thoughts on Carr? Yeah, so I don't love Derek Carr tonight because I think that the Raiders really could destroy the Rams in this game. But if it does end up being close, Carr definitely is playable. He's had at least 17 fantasy points now in 5 consecutive games, but he hasn't had a huge ceiling. He doesn't have a single game this entire year over 25 points, but most of his games he's been over 15 points. So Derek Carr's been like right in the same range almost every single week, like in the 15 to 20 point range. So it's not terrible. You could do much worse than that with Derek Carr, but I would play a lot of guys over him. I would play Goff over him. I was just saying, I think Goff has a real ceiling to go over 25 points. Derek Carr really just doesn't have it. He hasn't had a 25 point game literally this entire year. And then you look at how the Rams have fared against QBs, and that is a little bit of reason for optimism. Geno Smith had 22 points last week. Andy Dalton a couple weeks before that had 22 points, but they held Pat Mahomes to 18 points because the game was over in the first half, and that very much could happen tonight too for Derek Carr. So the floor is okay. The ceiling's not that great, I don't think, for Derek Carr tonight. There's just no way this game turns into a sudden shootout with the quarterback and offensive line situations with the Rams. I would be very careful betting on the Rams as well tonight. You're missing Daniel Carlson. Yeah, I never make kicker content. I'm very much in the remove kickers from fantasy camp. I know there's a very heated debate on both sides of the aisle of this argument, but in the way I think about it, every single minute of my life that I spend thinking about kickers is just it's just wasted. It's just a waste of time. So play the kickers, projected to be in the highest scoring offenses. You can start Daniel Carlson tonight. Yes. Pacheco or Mike Williams at flex. I think I'd go Pacheco. With what happened with Mike Williams last time he came back, it definitely feel a little sketchy. Hey, Sam, currently at work right now, but I'm still here. Hope you had a good week so far. Just want to pop in. Kylo, you're grinding, man. I'm at work too, man. I'm grinding here as well. Thanks for popping in. I do appreciate it. Bro, I'm struggling. I got to pick between players like McKinnon, Slayton, Myers, Juju, Rachaad White, Mac Hollins, and I need to start 2. Bro, a lot of people are struggling this week. There's a lot of buys this week. This is a big week, though. You got to get these spots right. I would not start McKinnon here. In Myers, I don't think he's going to play. He took a really brutal hit at the end of the last game for the Pats, and he has not practiced since. He is still in the concussion protocol. I don't hate Juju, but not a good matchup for Juju against the Broncos, and it's a game that the Chiefs should lead handedly. So that leaves you with Slayton, who's been actually low-key consistent, Rachaad White, who caught a lot of passes last game, and I don't hate Mac Hollins tonight either. I actually think Slayton and Mac Hollins have very similar prop lines. Slayton's prop line, and the prop lines are useful to look at, is at 46.5, and Mac Hollins' prop line is at 45.5. So they're super comparable, really similar options. I have a feeling we have Slayton projected ahead of Mac Hollins, and Slayton has had a solid floor. And again, is this risk with the Raiders tonight. The game just gets out of hand, and they don't need to throw very much, and they just lean on Josh Jacobs. We've seen them do that in the past. And Darius Slayton, he's got at least 10 points now in 6 of his last 7 games, or something ridiculous like that. Yeah, 5 of his last 6, and in the one he didn't, he still had 9 points. I think you go Slayton, and I think you go Rachaad White. I think that's the 2 I would go with. It's not a good matchup for Rachaad White either, but I think I would take him over Mac Daddy Hollins. What's up, Sam? Jamal Williams or James Cook? Not a Thursday night question, but it's all right, CJ. I still got you. Jamal Williams definitely sort of on a decline in my mind right now with DeAndre Swift seeing an uptick in touches, but I still would go Jamal. I would still go Jamal. He still has the goal line role in what should be a high-scoring game. He's leading the entire NFL in touchdowns. Hey, Sam, kind of light at tight end. Yeah, we all are, Brad. Start Moreau or Dolch. Thanks. Yeah, you got to go Dolch, man. There's a good chance Sutton doesn't play this week. That's kind of big for Dolch. He's playing a wide receiver role. Dolch is basically the wide receiver too for the Broncos, and you really can't say that about most tight ends. Obviously, he's on the Broncos. That's not good. His floor is really low, like almost every other tight end. Really, again, there's only like 3 or 4 tight ends that you can trust on a weekly basis. Neither of them are Moreau or Dolchich. But yeah, I'd go Dolchich over Moreau pretty confidently. Hey, Sam, Burks, Ayuk or Palmer. It sounded like today there's also a decent chance Treylon Burks doesn't play this week. He took a big shot on his one catch touchdown last week. So you can't trust Burks, and Mike Williams is supposed to be returning. I think you kind of have to go Ayuk, and I don't really love Ayuk with Purdy starting, but yeah, I think you go Ayuk of the bazooka. Can you start Devontae Parker this week? Alex, I actually think you can. I actually like it. I'm probably going to be I'm definitely going to be looking into the Devontae Parker prop line. Those aren't out yet because that's the Monday night game. But Devontae Parker, low key, is a very good sleeper this week. I'm thinking about putting my do not bench video that I post every week on TikTok, a little teaser there. But yeah, Devontae Parker's played at least 85% of the snaps in back-to-back games. He had 80 yards in week 12 against the Vikings. Like he's gonna get a couple chances at some big plays, I think, in this game against the Cardinals. Their secondary hasn't been great this year. He's got a low floor, but Alex, I think the ceiling's high enough to play Devontae Parker in some spots this week. Hey Sam, Dolch or Kittle? Yeah, we're going Kittle still over Dolch. Even though Purdy's starting, I still think I go Kittle over Dolch. Kittle's still one of the few guys that has a really elite ceiling. P. Ryan flex starter? No. Nope, we're not starting P. Ryan. I saw some hype pieces about P. Ryan today too. The Bengals thinking they're deep at running back now because he has done well. But with Joe Mixon back, you just can't start P. Ryan in fantasy. Slayton or Gabe Davis this week? Yeah, I'd play Gabe over Slayton. Zonovan Knight or Cam Akers? I'd go Zonovan Knight over Cam Akers. Does sound like he's still going to be the lead back. Cam Akers or Devin Singletary? Oh, God. I think you go Singletary there also. Yeah, I would go Singletary over Cam Akers as well. It's close. I actually think Cam Akers projects a tiny bit better. But again, this game script could be really bad for Cam. There's definitely a chance we see more Kyren Williams than last week. He only played 25% of the snaps last week. Deontay Foreman or Kenneth Walker this week if he plays. Yeah, so if he plays, it's Kenneth. But I don't think I don't know. I don't know if he's playing. There's one of the tough injuries to monitor this week. There's a lot of injuries to monitor this week, to be honest. But Kenneth Walker is one of them. How's Carlson going to do? Also, who puts up more half PPR, Jacobs or Devontae? I'd take Jacobs over Devontae tonight, and Carlson's probably going to do pretty well. The Rams defense is not scary. Not scary. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the subscribe button. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. We got a banger of a game tonight. We got the Las Vegas Raiders visiting the Los Angeles Rams, and they are 6.5-point favorites. Guys, do not start many players in this game. Obviously, you're starting Devontae Adams. Obviously, you're starting Josh Jacobs. I mean, both are top 3 at their position. I actually think we might have Josh Jacobs ranked number 1. We do. Josh Jacobs is our number 1 ranked running back in the WalterPicks app this week, and it makes sense. He's had 3 straight games with at least 21 carries. He's a 6.5-point favorite. He's catching passes. He's scoring touchdowns. There's really an extremely high floor, extremely high ceiling for Josh Jacobs tonight. Definitely think you should feel good about him tonight. I think I would play Pacheco over Mostert and Jamal, but it certainly is close. Karina, there's 2 sides to every start-sit decision. Zonovan Knight can be started. Michael Carter is supposed to return this week, but supposedly, according to the coaching staff, Zonovan Knight's still going to be the main back. But Michael Carter is going to play, and he's going to mix in more than the other running backs were. So Zonovan Knight's definitely a little bit sketchy, but it all depends on the other guy you're starting. Would you start Jameson Williams? No, I mean, you can't. You can't start Jameson Williams until we see him actually play like more than he did last week and get some reasonable target volume. Last week, Jameson Williams, and we didn't expect Jameson Williams. I hope you didn't expect Jameson Williams to, in his first game, be elite. He only played 10% of the snaps. He only ran 2 routes, guys. He ran 2 routes. You can't start a guy that ran 2 routes. Last week, he had 1 target, 0 catches. You can't start Jameson Williams until he's playing at least half the snaps. Foster Moreau or Njoku, you got to go Njoku. You have to play Njoku over Moreau. You have to play Njoku over Higbee. Same thing goes with Dulcich. You got to play Dulcich over these 2 tight ends tonight. You got it. Foster Moreau I love having Josh Jacobs. You certainly are not alone. Schultz or Dulcich? Yeah, you got to go Schultz there, I think, Blake. And Dulcich is kind of an interesting option because I think Sutton's going to sit this week, and that's kind of big for Dulcich, who is sort of wide receiver 2 on the Broncos, but he's also the Broncos, not an offense you want pieces of. They're averaging a league low 1.3 touchdowns per game. I definitely would go Schultz over Dulcich. Hey Sam, Seattle or Vegas defense? Yeah, you got to go Raiders. I do like the Raiders against the Rams tonight. We don't know who's starting. We don't know who's the starting quarterback for the Rams. I mean, absolutely wild. Let me actually refresh Twitter to make sure we haven't got any confirmation. Seahawks running back Kenneth Walker missed practice for the second straight day. I think there's a really good chance he sits. Rams QBs, Baker Mayfield, John Wolford, and Bryce Perkins are all active tonight. Unclear who will start and how much each will play. We could see multiple quarterbacks play for the Rams tonight. I'm personally think it'll be entertaining to see Baker Mayfield, but I also feel kind of bad for the guy. He's been on the team less than 48 hours. I mean, I really can't wrap my head around how an NFL quarterback is supposed to do anything on a team that he's been on for 2 days. I mean, there's the playbooks are so complex in the NFL. It's impossible. It's an impossible task behind a horrible offensive line with no receivers, no talent. I almost hope for Baker Mayfield's sake he doesn't play tonight, but I do think he's going to play. I kind of do think we see him, and I do think he's a better option than Wolford talent-wise, but I still think Wolford probably gives the Rams a better chance to win because he at least has been on the team for more than 48 hours. Gallup or Juju? Yeah, I'd go Juju, I think, over Gallup this week. Juju's in a bad spot against the Broncos, but he still is one of the top options for Patrick Mahomes' offense. So I'm okay going with Juju most of the time. Again, it's a bad matchup for him this week. Gallup has been improving. Let me see. Yeah, I think you got to go Juju. Yeah, you got to go Juju over Gallup. Should I start Coach Brendan Stadelska? Sean, I think there's a high floor, high ceiling there. Honestly, really good coach overall. I think you can consider it. Akers at flex, only if you really need to. Honestly, all the guys in this offense tonight, Cam Akers. He's really the only guy on the Rams that's a fringe start in my mind. Like, you can start Cam Akers. He is coming off a good game. He was the number 9 running back in fantasy last week, and he scored 2 touchdowns. And he had his season high 60% snap share. If that continues, yeah, he's sort of a flex option. But the offensive line's still really bad. The Rams could easily flip-flop back to Kyren Williams. It's a risky start, I'd say, with Cam Akers as an underdog, but he definitely is startable in some spots. I would start Cam Akers, for example. I'd start him over Zonovan Knight. All right, best start for tonight's game. Yeah, so you can see it scrolling at the bottom of the YouTube. You can see it up on the TikTok live too. You got to start Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. Obviously, you're starting both those guys. I really like the Raiders defense. I don't hate the Raiders kicker Carlson. I'm seeing some Carlson questions tonight. That's how you know this is one of those Thursday night games where we're seeing a lot of kicker questions. But yeah, I don't hate the Raiders side of this game, but you can't really trust anyone on the Rams other than Cam Akers as a fringe play. Moreau or Henry? I kind of like Hunter Henry this week. I'm not going to lie. Another sort of sleeper on the Patriots. Again, I don't think Jacoby Myers is going to play this week. And that's kind of a big deal for the Patriots and how the targets are going to be distributed. Jacoby Myers has been the clear top option for the Patriots all season. He's likely going to be out against a kind of not so good Cardinal secondary that has been dead last against tight ends. I mean, I'm talking 0 tight ends they've stopped. I mean, I do think Hunter Henry is a really good sleeper this week. And I think I would play him over Moreau. Start Garrett Wilson. Yes, start Garrett Wilson. What about Renfrow tonight? Renfrow not playing. Not playing tonight again. I believe he's been out for a while. I believe he's still on the IR. And he was really having a rough season before he got on IR too. Really bad season for Renfrow. I don't think he had a single game over 10 PPR points. And yeah, he's on the IR. No Renfrow tonight. That's why Mac Daddy Hollins is a fringe start. He's a fringe start. He's over under 45.5 yards. Not terrible. I definitely think he has some opportunity to make some plays tonight. Akers or Singletary? I'm going with Singletary over Akers. Again, I really don't want pieces of this Rams offense. I don't see how they're supposed to move the ball. Sam, who you like in the game? Ryan, you got to take the Raiders, right? You have to. How can you not take the Raiders? I just don't see. I don't see how the Rams win the game, how they even stay in the game. They have a bottom 5 offensive line. They are seriously considering starting a quarterback who joined the team less than 48 hours ago. They have probably a bottom 5 receiving unit at this point, led by Van Jefferson. They have Cam Akers and Kyren Williams in the backfield. They likely aren't going to make any big plays for the team behind a bad offensive line. And then the defense is missing Aaron Donald. Too. I think you have to take the Raiders. They are kind of hot right now, too. I'm certainly taking the Raiders against the spread. They're 6.5 point favorites. Kind of a big spread for a team like the Raiders, but I'm still taking them against the. I just can't. I can't put money on this Rams team. Must win for playoffs. Pick 2, Kyren Williams, Latavius Murray, DJ Chark, Hubbard, or Gus or Tony Jones. Yes, you're not starting Kyren. You cannot start Kyren Williams. There's just no way you could start him. There's a path to him being relevant in this game. We've seen him lead this backfield in touches, but Cam Akers did it last week. You just can't trust a guy that played 25% of the snaps on an awful offense last week. So I think it's between Latavius. You got to monitor the Deontay Foreman news too, and obviously the Seahawks backfield news too, with Tony Jones and Chuba Hubbard. They're only relevant if all the other guys in their backfield are hurt. So if those guys are the starting running backs for their teams, you got to start them over DJ Chark. I'm starting all of these guys over Gus, though. You can't trust Gus Edwards very much either. So yeah, I think my answer here is Latavius and DJ Chark, but you got to monitor the injury news to know about those running backs. A lot of injury news to monitor this week. The Seahawks backfield, the Panthers backfield. We got a lot of receiver injuries we're tracking this week. A lot of guys up in the air. Hollywood Brown or Christian Kirk. Yeah, you can't bench Christian Kirk. He's playing the Titans. It's just such a good matchup for him. Akers versus James Cook versus Rachaad White, full PPR. This one's definitely pretty close. My gut says Rachaad White, though, with how much he was involved in the receiving game. James Cook definitely not a horrible option either, though. It's a tough matchup for Rachaad White. That's the problem for Rachaad this week. He's playing the number one defense against running backs this week. His floor is really, really low this week, and the Bills get the Jets. The Jets' run defense has been okay this season, but the Bills obviously big favorites in that game. That does bode well for James Cook. I'm okay going James Cook. I actually like the ceiling for James Cook. I think the floor is kind of low, but the ceiling's fine. Rachaad White or Hollywood Brown. I'm going Hollywood Brown over Rachaad White this week. Mac Hollins score prediction. Yeah, so his over-under is 45.5 receiving yards. I put him right around 9 or 10 fantasy points. Whether or not he scores a touchdown will probably be the difference maker there. But I don't hate Mac Daddy Hollins. I think he's a fringe play tonight. Zay Jones or Josh Palmer. Yeah, so with Mike Williams back, you just can't start Josh Palmer. You can't do it. I would go Zay Jones. Hey, Sam, subbed on YouTube and followed on TikTok. Thanks, man. Yeah, really appreciate that. It helps me way more than you realize. I really appreciate hitting the subscribe button on YouTube, hitting the follow button on TikTok. I'll try to get to as many comments as I possibly can on this live. Again, my general thoughts in the game, they're pretty straight. I feel like it's a pretty straightforward game tonight. You're obviously starting Adams and Jacobs. They're top 5 plays at their position. I have Jacobs as the number one running back this week. I think Derek Carr's a fringe start. Mac Hollins a fringe start. Cam Akers a very fringe start. Raiders defense you're starting. I think Daniel Carlson, if you have him, the kicker, you're starting him. And basically every single other player in this game, bench them. Like just bench them. Tough flex play this week. Hollins or Pickens. Yes, you got to go Pickens. You have to go Pickens. There's a decent chance, it sounds like, that Deontay Johnson does not play this week. And that's kind of big news for Pickens. He's coming off a really brutal game. Obviously, 1 catch for 2 yards last week for George Pickens, but he's still playing as the deep threat for the Steelers. It's a good matchup for him against the Ravens. I think you got to go Pickens. I think the ceiling for Pickens is higher. And again, there's a decent chance his game runs away from the Rams. I'm taking the Raiders as 6.5 point favorites in this game. Do not start Kyren Williams. I would probably play Jeff Wilson over Cam Akers, but it's definitely, that one's definitely close. I have a feeling Cam Akers probably projects better, but I got a bad feeling for Cam Akers tonight. You got to go Jeff Wilson. It's a good match for Jeff Wilson against the Chargers. I think you go him over Cam Akers. Dulcich or Njoku, also Devontae Smith or Judy. Yeah, so if Sutton sits, I think you got to go Judy over Devontae Smith. They're actually really similar players in my mind. I think they're similar talents. Tough spot, obviously, for Judy being on one of the least scoring offense in the NFL. But it's against the Chiefs. They're going to have to throw in this game. You got to play Judy. And then Njoku versus Dulcich is definitely really close. I don't hate Njoku at all this week. I think that he's definitely worth consideration. Yeah, I honestly think I would go Njoku. I think Dulcich is safer, though. We just haven't seen what Njoku looks like with Deshaun Watson. We've never really seen Deshaun have a big tight end. I liked Njoku, though, a decent amount this week. I think it's a solid matchup for him against the Bengals. Dulcich against the Chiefs, though, pretty solid matchup there, too. I don't really love starting Dulcich and Judy, though. I don't think you want to start both those guys. So, yeah, I think I'd go Njoku. Raiders defense or Eagles defense? Eagles defense. Eagles defense against the Giants rather than the Raiders defense against the Rams. I do like the Raiders defense tonight, too, though. Trevor Lawrence or Daniel Jones? Yeah, we got to keep monitoring the Trevor Lawrence ankle injury as well. But if he plays, I'm going Trevor Lawrence over Daniel Jones. Really good spot for him against the Titans. A bad secondary. Raiders or Ravens defense? Chenshaw 77 in the TikTok live, man. Shout out to you for subscribing to the TikTok live. Seriously, really do appreciate you. And I would go the Raiders defense over the Ravens. The Raiders defense is in a really good spot. They're 6.5-point road favorites, and we don't even know the starting quarterback for the Rams, which is not good. It is really not good for the Rams. If Baker Mayfield starts, man, and I have nothing against Baker. I still think he has a shot to stick around in the NFL. I still think he's definitely good enough to be in the league, a backup at least. I still think he has some hope, some upside in the NFL. He was the first overall pick. We saw him be pretty solid as a rookie. Obviously, he's had some pretty bad stretches of football, but he's been on this team less than 48 hours. I mean, talk about setting up a player for failure if he plays in this game tonight. It really, really just, there's almost no chance he can succeed in this situation. He's been on the team less than 48 hours. His offense is completely deplete of talent. One of the worst offensive lines in the league. One of the worst receiving groups in the league without Cooper Kupp, without Allen Robinson, and one of the worst backfields in the league too. It's just brutal out there for the Rams. Good streaming kickers for the rest of the season or this week. Yeah, so Justin, what you want to do when you're streaming kickers, go to the over-unders for each team. You can find these on any sports book, and then just pick the kickers on the teams that are supposed to score the most. That's the whole analysis. That's it. So I don't have a specific kicker for you, but there is the solution. Hollins or Singletary after Kamara's bye week, him or Swift. Oh God, I think it's Swift. I mean, we got to see Ingram's out for the season now. I think that's good for Taysom Hill. I mean, Kamara's looked so bad. It's so strange. It's so strange watching Alvin Kamara not look good because he's been good for so long. At least 3 years, he's been just an absolute stud, very consistent. But yeah, I'm playing Swift over Kamara at this point till we see something more from Kamara. And then Hollins or Singletary. Singletary against the Jets. Hollins is playing tonight. Hollins is over under tonight. It's 45.5. I really don't hate Hollins tonight. I think he will be involved. He should play a pretty big role, but we have him only projected for 9.8 points. Singletary is projected for 8 points. So yeah, it's Hollins. I'd play Mac Daddy Hollins over Devin Singletary. And I think the reason that Singletary's projections really taking a big hit is the ascension of James Cook. And James Cook just straight up looks better than Singletary. So any given week, I think that really lowers Singletary's floor if James Cook, his role starts increasing. And James Cook's also seeing more targets than Singletary. And then on top of that, for James Cook and Singletary, you got Josh Allen, a threat to steal any of the rushing touchdowns too. Really lowers the floor and ceiling for both those running backs too. Gallup or Debo. Yeah, I'm not ready. I'm not as out on Debo as it feels like most people are. I saw a Twitter poll the other day that said Debo Samuel or Christian Watson rest of season, and I'm talking 90% of people voted for Christian Watson. I get the love for Christian Watson. Obviously, he's on an absolute tear. I think it's 4 straight games now over 20 points for Christian Watson. He scored like a ridiculous 7 touchdowns in that stretch. But I'm personally still taking Debo over Christian Watson rest of the season. I don't feel like that's that bold of a take. He had 10 targets last week. Debo Samuel had 10 targets last week. Like low key, Brock Purdy might be good for Debo because Brock Purdy's not going to be able to push the ball down the field to Brandon Ayuk. He's going to throw the ball to Debo Samuel at or around the line of scrimmage. That's probably good for Debo. I'm okay starting Debo here, and I like Debo rest of the season. I think he's being pretty slapped on at this point in the season. I appreciate you a ton. I'm subbed and followed on YouTube and TikTok. Justin, thank you, man. I really do appreciate you as well. And yeah, a shout out to everyone in this live stream right now. Why did Fournette projected points went down in fantasy? Because Rachaad White is playing a bigger and bigger role. Opinion on Akers. Yeah, so I think he's a very, very, very fringe start tonight. I wouldn't trust Cam Akers too much in your fantasy lineups tonight. I think he's a fringe start if you really need him. Like I'd play him over Zonovan Knight. For example, I do think I'd play him over Devin Singletary. He's over-unders 45.5 rushing yards. He did score 2 TDs last week. He did play a season-high 60% of the snaps last week. But I don't feel confident that necessarily is going to continue. It's definitely possible Kyron Williams is more involved. Joke, Kelsey or Dulcich. Yeah, obviously Kelsey. I mean, Kelsey's really been a top 5 player in fantasy this season. I'm very fascinated to see where he gets picked next year. It's probably going to be in the top 6 picks in most fantasy leagues. Miles Sanders or Cam Akers. Yeah, you got to go Miles Sanders over Cam Akers 100%. Trevor Lawrence or Tom Brady. This one's actually, I have a feeling this one's probably pretty close. It is, yeah. And I think I would go Trevor Lawrence, assuming he plays. He hasn't practiced this week, but assuming he plays, which it sounds like he will, I would go Tom Brady. Trade Debo and Najee for Kamara and Jones. Oh, if that's Aaron Jones, I'm okay with that trade. Mac or Judy? I'd go Judy over Mac. Can I stream Akers tonight? Walker may be out, or play Pierce or Rashad, please. So you can stream Akers tonight. He did score 2 touchdowns last week. He did play a season high. Let me pull up the exact numbers here for Akers. He did play season high, I think around 60% of the snaps. Sorry, a season high 80% of the snaps last week. 17 carries he had. 17 carries. He had 60 yards. He only had 1 catch, 2 touchdowns. He had 19 points. He was a top 8 running back last week. That was against the Seahawks, though. If he plays 80% of the snaps tonight, you're going to want to play him, I think. And I don't think you can trust Kenneth Walker right now. But because you have Dameon Pierce and Rachaad White, I think they're equally as good options as Cam Akers tonight. I would hold out hope, and I would not stream Cam Akers. Dameon Pierce versus Cam Akers, man. I mean, it's a tough matchup for Dameon Pierce, too. I personally think I would go Dameon Pierce, though, over Cam Akers, which is why I'm okay benching Cam Akers if you're holding out hope for Kenneth Walker in that spot. Timothy, man, we don't need to spam. You don't need to spam in the YouTube Live. There's not that many people in this Thursday Night Live. It's the Rams. It's the Raiders. Not the biggest Thursday night game. So I got you, Timothy. Ingram or Kittle. Yeah, you got to go Kittle over Evan Ingram. Jacoby Myers or Deontay. Brian, both these guys might not play this week. So you're pretty down bad with this question. Both guys. I'd say Jacoby's more likely not to play than Deontay. I think Deontay's more like 50-50 to play. So I guess I'd go Deontay. But both guys could easily not play this week. Neither guy practiced today. Neither guy stepped on the field today at practice. What's up with Pierce? He's been rough. Yeah, I mean, Dameon Pierce is very game script dependent. That's not good for him this week, obviously, against the Cowboys, 17.5-point underdog, but he's still playing a lot. He still played 68% of the snaps last week. He had 18 carries last week, 95 yards. One of his better games. Obviously, the Browns are a really good matchup for running backs. Maybe that's not obvious, but they are a very good matchup for running backs. And that's not the case for the Cowboys, who he's playing this week. But yeah, I think with that snap share, like Dameon Pierce is still startable. I'd play him over Cam Akers. My bad. I got you. It's all good, Timothy. Travis Homer or Pierce. We don't know. We don't know if the Seahawks running back situation yet. So it depends who's out and who's in for the Seahawks. But yeah, I think I'd lean Pierce. Kadarius Toney is not a guy I can trust until we see him actually play in a game at full strength again. Who do you think the top running back option for the Seahawks will be this week if Walker is out? Yeah, so my bet is on Travis Homer, but he's questionable, pretty questionable too. And if he's out, I think it very well could be Tony Jones, because I do not think DJ Dallas is going to be active either. So it's going to be Travis Homer if he plays and Kenneth Walker's out. But if he sits too, all of a sudden it's Tony Jones. And Tony Jones, guys, bad. I mean, he's bad. I would not trust Tony Jones at all, even if he has the backfield all to himself. We've seen this in the past with him. In the one game he had the backfield to himself, he had 16 carries and he went under 30 yards. Hey, Sam, Dulcich or Moreau, you got to go Dulcich. You got to go Dulcich over both the tight ends playing tonight, 100%. I'd go Dulcich over both tight ends playing tonight. I'd consider Hunter Henry over both the guys playing tonight, and I'm sure Hunter Henry's available in lots of leagues. I would play Ngakoue. I would consider him at least. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. I'm horrible at name pronunciation, but he's the tight end on the Titans. I'd like Hunter Henry more than him. I'm sure both those guys are available in most leagues. Will Odell Beckham Jr. be back this season? It doesn't sound like in the regular season, maybe in the playoffs if he signs with the right team. But I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't. I wouldn't be shocked if he takes the time in this offseason and gets fully healthy before he tries to come back. It doesn't sound like he's in a great spot health-wise in the immediate moment, based on all the reports we've seen recently. Kyren, Pierce, or Singletary, choose two. Yeah, I mean, that's just these are disgusting options at running back this week with all the buys. I think Singletary is probably the best there. You can't start Kyren Williams. You just absolutely cannot start Kyren Williams tonight. How do you cook your eggs in the morning? Jack, this is the content, man, that I'm here for. I'm a scrambled eggs type of guy. I feel like over easy is good. It's good, but you just mess it up too many times, and it's so devastating. You know, when you go over easy and then the yolk cracks before you get to eat it. So I usually play it safe. I usually go scrambled. Start pretty high floor, low ceiling with the scrambled, high ceiling, low floor with the over easy. Start for Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Godwin, Marquise Brown, Judy. Higgins is dealing with a hammy issue, I think. Yeah, let me pull up the Higgins stuff. I actually do think I saw that today as well. But I do think he's going to play. Let me see the latest on T. Yeah, he was limited in Thursday's practice with a hamstring. Hamstring injuries always are a little concerning because they are so easy to aggravate, and it's a new injury for him. So we got to monitor it. but let's assume he's playing still in this question. You're starting these first two guys automatic. You got to start Amon-Ra. You got to start Jamar Chase. You have to start Chris Godwin too. And then between Judy and Marquise Brown, I think that one's kind of close. But with Courtland Sutton out, Judy really is in a good spot this week. Sutton is doubtful to play this week. I think that's a pretty solid bump for Judy. I'm okay going Judy as the fourth guy here, assuming you're nervous about T. Higgins. But if T. Higgins gets to a full practice before the game, I'm playing T. Higgins over Judy for sure. Hey, Sam, must win to make the playoffs. Jack, let's get it, man. Keenan, Mondre, Kenneth, Swift, or ETN. Yeah, so let's just remove Kenneth because I don't think he's going to play. I think we can also remove ETN from this list just because he's got the toughest matchup, I think, on the list. You got to start Mondre. 100% you're starting Mondre. Damien Harris could very well miss another week. And if he does, Mondre is literally a top 5 running back, especially in PPR leagues. And then between Keenan and Swift, that's a pretty tough one, man. Let me actually pull up the exact projections here because Mike Williams is back, but Keenan Allen still projects really well. He's projected for about 15 PPR fantasy points. That's almost definitely better than Swift. Let me pull up the Swift projection. Yeah, DeAndre Swift, right? They're projected almost exactly the same. So I probably what are the matchups again in this one? The Chargers are playing the Dolphins. Oh man, yeah, it's a and I know the Lions are playing the Vikings. I think I would probably go Keenan if it's a PPR league. I'd probably go Keenan over Swift. The Vikings have been really bad defensively this season, but they've been much worse in the secondary than the run defense. I'd go Njoku over Foster. A.J. Brown or Lamb. I think I'd probably go A.J. Brown over Lamb this week just because of the game script potentially for the Cowboys. They're 17.5 point favorites. The Cowboys are 17.5 point favorites. I mean, one of the biggest spreads of the season. So yeah, I think that you gotta be careful with the Cowboys passing attack this week. Do I keep Evan Ingram or pick up Hunter Henry this week? I'm fine going Henry over Ingram this week. I think that's fine. The matchup is really good for Henry. Like, he really is a decent sleeper. The floor is really low, obviously, for all of these tight ends. I mean, all that really aren't in the top 5, especially the top 1, really. But yeah, I'm okay going Hunter Henry. The Cardinals dead last against tight ends this season. I'm talking like 90% of tight ends that have played this team have done really well. So I'm okay going with Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry is also could see a bigger role in the passing game this week because Jacoby Myers is trending towards not playing. He has not practiced since his concussion. He's still in concussion protocol. So yeah, I'm okay going with Henry this week. I think he's actually a really good sleeper at the tight end spot. Remember, don't play Thursday players in your flex, Brad. Shout out to you, man. Definitely good shout there. Not to play the guys in your flex that you don't need to play in your flex. Like, you just want to stay flexible. That's why they call it the flex spot. Hey, Sam, how are you? I'm doing great, Peter. Thanks for asking, man. It's going to be a fun Thursday night. I got a good feeling about this game being just very entertaining. That's all I'm looking for in this game. Very entertaining. Also very much rooting for the Ben Skowronek prop because why not? It's Thursday night. Let's put some money on Ben Skowronek. I said Skowronek, I think. Skowronek. 28.5 receiving yards. Could easily do that in one catch. But yeah, I mean, this game's going to be fun, man. Sorry, Peter, back to your question here. You got me excited by asking how I was, and I didn't even get to your question. But yeah, I do like the Raiders defense more than the Seahawks defense this week. The Raiders defense, they're playing the Rams. I was just talking about the Skowronek prop, but it's at 28.5 for a reason because this offense, like, how are they supposed to move the ball? We don't know who's going to be quarterback. If John Wolford's quarterback, that's probably the best case scenario for the Rams offense. But he's dealing with a neck injury. I mean, neck injuries can be really tough in the NFL. Baker Mayfield joined the team less than 48 hours ago. There's some real murmurs that we're going to see him tonight. I mean, talk about a guy set up to fail. But regardless of who's starting tonight, this is a bottom 5 offensive line, a bottom 5 unit of receivers and running backs. It's brutal. It's brutal for the Rams offense. You got to start the Raiders defense tonight for sure. I'd play them over the Seahawks defense. I like them a lot. They're 6.5 point road favorites. And like, legitimately wouldn't be surprised if the Rams score less than 10 points tonight. Would you play Higbee or Dolch? I'm playing Dolch over Higbee. I mean, 1,000% Eddie. It's not even much of a thought for me. I'm definitely playing Dolch over Higbee. Courtland Sutton might not play this week. That's kind of big. What do you think about Foster Moreau? I don't love him. He's been honestly really disappointing. With Darren Waller out, he has not stepped up very much. I don't think he's had a single big fantasy game. His best game was 12.3 points a couple weeks ago against the Seahawks. Good matchup. He did score a touchdown in that game, but he's just another one of these tight ends, guys. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he is a lock to go under 10 points. He does not have a single game this entire season with more than 10 points when he didn't score a touchdown. And you can say that about a lot of tight ends, but it's just so brutal. Prize picks tonight. Yeah, Adam, I am hitting some prize picks tonight. By the way, if they haven't moved it yet, go get the George Pickens line on prize picks. Every other sports book, every other place has removed the George Pickens line because of the Deontay Johnson news. So I got a lot riding on Pickens. I do think they're going to move that line, especially if Deontay doesn't play at least 10 yards. That's at 42.5 for Pickens against a bad Ravens secondary. Obviously coming off a bad game, but he could do that in a single play. But tonight, I'm going with the Skowronek line over 28.5. I think he played 100% of the snaps last week for the Rams. So he's going to be out there almost every single snap. A guy that's going to play the entire game. He just needs to get 29 yards. It's really not a lot of yards. I keep saying Skowronek. It's Skowronek. I know it's Skowronek. But yeah, I like him, and I don't hate Josh Jacobs rushing. Josh Jacobs touchdown. Generally, the Josh Jacobs props are the safest props in this game with how it's likely going to go. What defenses would you start ahead of the Raiders this week? Yeah, let's pull it up. We got a lot of defense and kicker questions tonight, but I'm here for it on this Thursday night. Let's pull up the projections here. There's only two defenses. I'm playing over the Raiders. It's the Bills against the Jets, and it's the Cowboys against the Texans. That's it. I'm not playing the Steelers over them. I'm not playing the Chiefs over them. I'm not playing the Seahawks over the Raiders defense. Not playing the Ravens over the Raiders defense. Not playing the 49ers over the Raiders defense. Not playing the Bucs over the Raiders defense. I'm playing only the Bills and the Cowboys over the Raiders defense. That's it. So, yeah, they're the third best defense, in my opinion, this week. Must win to make playoffs. Walt, you're not alone. Miles Sanders, Fournette, Juju, Pickens, Burks in the flex. Yeah, so decent chance Burks does not play this week. I'm liking Pickens more and more as Deontay Johnson news. He did not practice today with a hip injury. He got downgraded to out. He practiced on a limited basis yesterday and got downgraded to out. That's usually a really bad sign for the prospect of playing. That is a bump for Pickens. It's a good matchup for Pickens. I'm okay trying out Pickens over Juju this week in a matchup. Juju's playing the Broncos. Tough matchup for him. Miles Sanders against the Giants, Fournette against the 49ers. You can't trust Fournette this week against 49ers. I would go Miles Sanders and Pickens, I think, in this one. Good luck in your must start. Is Mostert startable above Pierce and White? Let's pull up the projections here for Mostert. I mean, it's a good match for Mostert. Chargers run defense is really bad. Obviously, Jeff Wilson remains involved. I think Mostert actually played a little bit more than Jeff Wilson last week, though. It's tough to put him ahead of Dameon Pierce with how much Dameon Pierce has been playing. I personally think I would still go with Dameon Pierce or Rachaad White over Raheem Mostert. I also think that the Dolphins could throw a lot against the Chargers. Who's scoring 2 TDs tonight? If it's anyone, it's gonna be Josh Jacobs. I mean, he's one of the few. It's him or Devontae Adams. Really, the only two guys have a chance at 2 TDs tonight. How do you feel about Mac Daddy Hollins? I'm feeling pretty good about Mac Daddy Hollins. Honestly, his over/unders around 50 yards. Not bad for Mac Daddy, and I think he's going to be out there almost every single snap. Obviously, Devontae Adams is going to command a lot of attention from the Rams. But yeah, you gotta understand there's a low floor for Mac Daddy Hollins as well, though, because again, all the pass catchers, even Devontae Adams, obviously he has a pretty solid floor always. But even Devontae Adams is at a little bit more risk this week, just because this game really could get out of hand for the Rams. They're 6.5-point home underdogs. They haven't even announced their starting quarterback. They literally might start a QB that has been on the team for less than 48 hours. I mean, absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. I think John Wolford's going to start, by the way. I said at the beginning of the season I thought it was going to be Baker. I kind of feel like it has to be Wolford. Or they can't start. They can't start Baker when he hasn't even been on the team for 48 hours. Hey, Sam, start Tua or Murray. Yeah, I actually really like Tua this week. You sure about Bills over Raiders D? I don't feel super strongly about defenses just in general because there's a lot of variance there. You're just praying that they score a touchdown. The Bills against the Jets, though. I mean, Mike White's been playing better. Von Miller out. I still think the Bills defense is pretty good. This game's in Buffalo, right? Too. Yeah, it's in Buffalo. They're 10-point favorites at home in Buffalo. They're bigger favorites than the Raiders. I'm okay going Bills defense. I really am. I think that they could have a pretty big game against the Jets. I personally would go with the Bills, but I mean the Raiders are in a good spot too. I don't feel strongly about it. Hey, healthy Travis Homer or Pacheco? Yeah, I'm going Pacheco over healthy Travis Homer. Which two do I start out of Zeke, Sanders, or Pierce? You got to start Zeke. Have to start Zeke for sure. And then I think it's Sanders over Pierce as well. I mean, such a good spot for Zeke tonight. Start Akers only if you're really living on the edge. Really, only if you're on the edge. I play Miles Sanders over Cam Akers. I wouldn't say he's a good start. I think he's a fringe start. I got Cam Akers as a fringe start tonight. Pick 2, Rachaad White, Dameon Pierce, DJ Moore, and Michael Gallup. I think it's DJ Moore. I feel like DJ Moore is the name I trust the most on that list, and then probably Dameon Pierce next. I think I'd play Dameon Pierce over Gallup. The Cowboys are in sort of a similar, I mean, even more so to the Raiders. They're 17.5-point favorites, the Cowboys. They might not need to throw like at all in this game. They're playing the dead last run defense. They could just hand it to Zeke and Pollard the whole game, similar to what they did in their last game. DJ Moore, Akers. I'm going DJ Moore over Akers. The Panthers are up against the Seahawks this week. The Seahawks have actually been pretty good against receivers, but still DJ Moore is projected for about 12 fantasy points, right after the top 25 receivers. I think his ceiling is well higher than Cam Akers. Hey, Sam, start Tua or Murray? Yeah, so I think I'd go Tua. I really do. I think Tua's been a little unlucky in fantasy touchdown-wise in the last few weeks, and I really like the game environment against the Chargers. I think it's going to be a really high-scoring game. Both teams, I think, are going to throw a lot. The only risk with Tua is really if the Dolphins come into this game and want to attack the weakness of the Chargers' run defense. They run more than I'm expecting. But, yeah, you got to like Tua a decent amount this week. Guys, hey, Sam, thanks for all the help. Appreciate you. Thanks, man. Yeah, hit the follow button. Hit the subscribe button if you guys haven't yet. Really appreciate all of you in this stream. Guys, this is one of my favorite things to do every week. Of course, I'll be back live Sunday morning as always. Let me wrap up my final thoughts for this game. I'll get to a couple more start sits, and then I will be wrapping up the live. The Raiders, you got to be on the Raiders tonight. I don't know how you could possibly be putting any money on the Rams in this game. They're 6.5-point underdogs. I would take the 6.5-point spread for the Raiders. I think they win this game by at least 7. I mean, it would be a classic Raiders implosion if they lose this game. There's nothing for the Rams. I mean, they have absolutely no talent on offense. They have a very depleted defense on top of that. There's almost no way they can win this game. I wouldn't be shocked if they score less than 10 points. So that's why I think Cam Akers is only a fringe start, not a must start, even though he played 80% of the snaps last week and he had a pretty big game. You got to play Akers over Kyron Williams, though. And I think over Homer, too. Yeah, Brandon, in this one, you got to start Cam Akers. That's why he's a fringe start. You're starting Cam Akers over Kyron Williams. You're starting Cam Akers over Travis Homer. We don't even know if Travis Homer is going to play. And, yeah, a lot of people in bye-week limbo for sure. And, yeah, Cam Akers, at least there's some hope. He played 80% of the snaps last week. Like, there's not much on this offense. Especially if Baker finds his way into the field, there's just almost no way they can throw the ball very much with a quarterback that just joined the team less than 48 hours ago. All right. Last question I'm going to get to here, Dolch or a healthy Njoku. Yeah, I think, Peter, I think it's Njoku. A healthy Njoku, I think I'd play over Dolch, but we got to wait and see if Sutton's out. That definitely could change the projection a little bit too. That's my time, guys. Time. It's the most valuable thing we have. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Again, I'll be back live Sunday morning. Good luck tonight and have a good rest of your Thursday night.